The warning lights flashed red as Ambassador David Kane stepped through the energy barrier into the most dangerous room in the galaxy. The Galactic Council's judgment chamber stretched before him like the inside of a massive crystalline heart, its walls pulsing with strange alien lights that seemed to respond to every heartbeat in the room. Above him, floating platforms held representatives from over 300 different species, each one more terrifying than the last. David kept his breathing steady as he walked to the center of the chamber. The gravity here was 3 times Earth normal, designed to crush the spirit of anyone foolish enough to challenge the Council's authority. Most species sent their strongest warriors to survive these meetings. David had volunteered to come alone, wearing nothing but a simple diplomatic uniform and a calm smile that seemed completely out of place. High above, Counselor Threk of the Iron Dominion spoke first. His voice boomed through translation devices built into every surface. "Human representative, you stand before the supreme authority of this galaxy. We control over 7,000 star systems and command fleets that number in the millions. Your species has existed in our domain for exactly 47 standard days." David nodded politely, as if Threk had just mentioned the weather. "Counselor Threk, it's an honor to finally meet the legendary Iron Dominion. Your reputation for military excellence has reached even our small corner of space." A ripple of surprise went through the chamber. Host species trembled when addressing the Iron Dominion. This human sounded like he was making casual conversation. Counselor Yiska, whose serpentine form coiled around her floating platform, hissed through her translator. "Your casual attitude is inappropriate, human. You have been summoned here to answer for your species' actions. In 47 days you have established colonies on 12 worlds without seeking our permission." "Ah yes, the colonies," David said, clasping his hands behind his back. "I apologize for any confusion about that. We weren't aware we needed permission to settle on uninhabited worlds." The chamber erupted in angry sounds from dozens of different species. Counselor Threk's voice cut through the noise. "Ignorance is no excuse. Every world in this galaxy belongs to the Council. Every resource, every system, every grain of space dust falls under our jurisdiction." David tilted his head thoughtfully. "I see. And how long has the Council maintained this level of control?" "For over 3,000 years, Yiska replied with obvious pride. "We have brought order to chaos, peace to a violent galaxy. Species that join our protection live in harmony under our guidance." "Impressive," David said, and he actually sounded impressed. 3,000 years of maintaining control over such a vast territory. That requires incredible organizational skill. He paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. "Tell me, how many species have challenged the Council's authority during that time?" Counselor Breek, a massive creature covered in bony plates, spoke for the first time. "Hundreds have tried. None have succeeded. Their civilizations serve as examples to others who might consider defying us." "Of course," David nodded. "And these species that challenged you, what were they like? Technologically advanced? Militarily powerful? The strongest warriors in the galaxy," Threk boomed. "Races that had conquered dozens of systems, species with weapons that could crack planets. All fell before our might." David was quiet for a long moment, seeming to absorb this information. When he spoke again, his voice carried a strange new tone. "Counselor Threk, Counselor Yiska, members of the Council, I appreciate you sharing this history with me. It helps me understand the situation much better." He began walking in a slow circle, his movement somehow hypnotic despite the crushing gravity. "You see, when my government sent me here, they were curious about something. In all our observations of galactic civilization, we noticed an interesting pattern. The chamber grew quieter, even the constant background hum of translation devices seeming to fade. Every species that has challenged your authority," David continued. "They all had something in common. They were apex predators on their homeworlds. Powerful hunters, dominant species that had climbed to the top of their food chains through strength and aggression." Counselor Yiska's serpentine head swayed slightly. "Your point, human?" David stopped walking and looked up at the Council members. "My point is that you've become very good at defeating predators. You understand how they think, how they fight, how they can be beaten." His smile returned, but now it seemed different somehow. "The thing is, counselors, humanity isn't like those other species." "Explain," Threk demanded. "We're not predators," David said simply. "We're something much worse." The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. Several smaller species shifted nervously on their platforms. You see, David continued, his voice now carrying clearly to every corner of the vast space. Every species that challenged you before, they announced their intentions. They built up their fleets, declared war, fought you openly. Classic predator behavior, right? He resumed his slow walk, but now there was something predatory about his movement that made even the massive Counselor Breek lean back slightly. But humans evolved differently. We didn't dominate our world through strength or size or natural weapons. We did it through patience, through intelligence, through understanding our prey better than they understood themselves. David stopped directly in the center of the chamber and looked up at the council with that same calm smile. Counselors, you've spent 3,000 years learning how to defeat predators, but you've never faced a species of persistence hunters before. You've never dealt with creatures who can track their prey across continents, who can wait for weeks or months for the perfect moment to strike, who work together in ways that your prey never sees coming until it's too late. The silence in the chamber was absolute now. The 12 colonies you mentioned? David's voice was almost conversational. Those weren't random settlements. They were carefully chosen positions that give us control over your 3 most important supply routes. The uninhabited worlds we selected, they contain the exact mineral resources needed to build the kind of fleet that could challenge your authority. Counselor Yiska's translator crackled as she spoke. Impossible. Our intelligence networks would have detected any large-scale military buildup. David's smile widened just enough to be visible from the floating platforms above. Would they? Tell me, Counselor. In the 47 days since we made contact, how many human ships have your scouts observed? Fewer than 50, Threk replied immediately. Mostly civilian transports and small diplomatic vessels. Exactly, David said. 50 ships. A laughably small force compared to your millions. He paused, letting that sink in. Of course, that assumes your scouts managed to detect all of our vessels. The implications of his words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Counselor Breek's bony plates rattled as he spoke. What are you saying, human? David looked around the chamber one more time, taking in the hundreds of alien faces staring down at him. I'm saying, honored counselors, that you've just learned the difference between predators and persistence hunters. Predators announce themselves. They want their prey to know they're coming. He clasped his hands behind his back again, assuming the same casual pose he'd held when he first entered the chamber. Persistence hunters, on the other hand, prefer their prey to feel safe right up until the moment they realize they've been surrounded. The lights in the chamber seemed to dim, and for the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a species they didn't understand at all. The silence in the council chamber stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Counselor Threk's massive form shifted on his platform, the metal groaning under his weight. You speak in riddles, human. If you're trying to intimidate the council with vague threats, you have made a serious miscalculation. David Kane remained perfectly still in the center of the chamber, that same calm smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Intimidate? Counselor Threk, I'm simply trying to help you understand what you're dealing with. You've ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years by being the apex predators, but you've never encountered a species like humanity before. Counselor Yiska's serpentine form coiled tighter around her platform. Your species shows no signs of apex predator evolution. You lack natural weapons, enhanced physical capabilities, or superior size. By what measure do you claim dominance? By every measure that matters, David replied. He began walking again, but now his movement seemed to command the attention of every being in the chamber. Tell me, counselors, when your scientists analyzed Earth's biosphere, what did they find? Counselor Breek's bony plates clicked together as he accessed data files. A standard Class M world with diverse life forms. Nothing remarkable. Certainly no indication of a dominant predator species. Really? David's eyebrows rose in mock surprise. They found nothing remarkable about Earth's extinction patterns. The timing of when various species disappeared? A new voice entered the conversation. Counselor Zahn of the Research Collective, whose massive brain case pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, spoke with the authority of the galaxy's greatest scientific minds. The extinction data from your world shows standard environmental pressures. Climate change, volcanic activity, asteroid impacts. David stopped walking and turned to face Zahn directly. Standard environmental pressures. Is that what you call it when every single apex predator on a planet vanishes within a few thousand years of one species developing basic tools? The bioluminescent patterns on Zahn's brain case flickered rapidly. a sign of intense calculation. Elaborate. Cave bears, David said, counting on his fingers. Dominated European forests for hundreds of thousands of years. Extinct within 5,000 years of humans developing spears. Saber-toothed cats, terror birds, giant ground sloths, dire wolves, woolly mammoths. His voice grew quieter, but somehow more menacing. Every creature on Earth that was bigger, stronger, or more dangerous than humans. All gone, Counselor Yiska's translator crackled. Species competition is natural. The stronger survives. You're missing the point, David said, his tone becoming almost educational. These weren't the stronger species. Humans were smaller, weaker, slower than everything we eliminated. We had no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced senses. By every measure you use to judge apex predators, we should have been prey. He resumed his slow circuit of the chamber's center. But we had something those creatures didn't. Something that made us more dangerous than any predator that had ever existed on Earth. Which was? Threk demanded. We never gave up, David said simply. Every other predator on Earth hunted until they were full, then rested. They were territorial, competitive with their own kind, limited by instinct and immediate needs. Humans were different. The chamber's lighting seemed to shift, casting strange shadows that made David's figure appear larger somehow. We hunted in coordinated groups that shared information across vast distances. We tracked prey for days, weeks, until they collapsed from exhaustion. We didn't just kill for food or territory. We eliminated threats to our long-term survival. David's voice carried a new edge now. We were persistence hunters on a planetary scale. Counselor Zahn's bioluminescent patterns had accelerated to an almost frantic pace. The mathematical implications are concerning. If your species applied those same hunting patterns to interstellar expansion. Now you're beginning to understand, David said with satisfaction. For the past 47 days you've been monitoring what you thought was a small exploration force. A few dozen ships, some minor colonies, the typical expansion pattern of a newly spacefaring species. He stopped in the exact center of the chamber and looked up at the assembled council members. But what if I told you that those 47 days weren't about exploration? What if they were about observation? The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop another few degrees. What if every human ship you detected was exactly where we wanted it to be? What if every colony we established was positioned to give us strategic advantage over your most critical infrastructure? What if, while you were cataloging our small visible presence, we were studying your weaknesses? Counselor Breek's massive form shifted uneasily. You claim to have hidden forces? Impossible. Our sensor networks cover every approach to council space. David's smile became almost pitying. Your sensor networks are designed to detect the kind of threats you've faced before. Massive fleets moving in formation, ships broadcasting their power signatures, species that want you to know they're coming. He spread his arms wide, encompassing the vast chamber. But what if we didn't want you to know? What if we approached from directions you never thought to monitor? What if we used technologies that don't register on sensors designed to detect conventional propulsion and energy signatures? The implications hit the council like a physical blow. Counselor Yiska's serpentine form began to sway more rapidly. You're suggesting your species has been conducting covert military operations in council space for over a month. I'm not suggesting anything, David replied calmly. I'm telling you exactly what we've done. While you were focused on our visible presence, human ships have been mapping every major system in your territory. We know the location of your shipyards, your resource storage facilities, your fleet deployment patterns, your communication networks. Counselor Threk's voice boomed with barely controlled fury. Even if this were true, which I doubt, you could not have gathered such intelligence without detection. Our security is absolute. Is it? David asked. Tell me, Counselor, when was the last time your security forces encountered a species that specialized in moving unseen? When did you last face hunters who could observe their prey for extended periods without being detected? The chamber fell silent except for the rapid clicking of Counselor Breek's bony plates. You see? David continued. Every species that challenged your authority before did so openly. They declared their intentions, massed their forces, fought you in the kind of direct confrontation you understand and excel at defeating. His voice dropped to almost a whisper, but somehow every being in the chamber could hear him clearly. Humans don't fight that way. We study our prey first. We learn their patterns, their weaknesses, their fears. We position ourselves carefully, patiently, taking as much time as we need to ensure the hunt is successful. He looked around the chamber one final time, his calm smile never wavering. And then, when everything is in position, when our prey is exactly where we want them to be, completely unaware of the danger they're in, David paused, letting the silence stretch until it became unbearable. That's when we let them know they were being hunted all along. The lights in the chamber pulsed ominously, and for the first time in 3 millennia, the Galactic Council began to understand what it felt like to be prey. Admiral Lisa Parker stood in the command center of the human vessel Endurance, watching tactical displays that showed the real-time positions of every major council fleet in the galaxy. Her expression remained calm as she sipped coffee from a EO mug labeled Apex Predator, but her eyes held the focused intensity of a hunter who had been tracking prey for weeks. "Admiral," called Captain Michael Torres from the communications station. "We're receiving urgent transmissions from 23 different council member species. They're all requesting immediate emergency diplomatic conferences." Parker set down her mug and studied the flood of incoming messages scrolling across her displays. Each one carried the desperate undertone of prey animals who had suddenly realized they were being watched by something dangerous. "Translation," she said calmly. "They're scared. How many of them have repositioned their fleets since Ambassador Kane's performance in the council chamber?" Lieutenant Commander Susan Blake looked up from her tactical station. "All of them, Admiral. The Iron Dominion has pulled back 4 full battle groups from their forward positions. The Serpent Coalition has abandoned their outer defense perimeter entirely. Even the Research Collective has recalled their deep space exploration fleets." Parker nodded with satisfaction. "Textbook prey behavior. When threatened, they cluster together for protection, abandoning their extended territories to consolidate defensive positions." She walked to the main holographic display where the galaxy spread before them in all its spiral glory. "They're thinking like herbivores who've caught the scent of a predator." Captain Torres frowned at his communication board. "Admiral, the Council is demanding that all human vessels immediately withdraw to Earth's local system pending a full military assessment. They're invoking Emergency Protocol 7 under the Galactic Security Accords." "Emergency Protocol 7? Parker mused, tracing patterns on the holographic star map with her finger. "Designed to contain potential threats by forcing them into a confined area where they can be monitored." She turned to face her bridge crew. "Do you know what the fundamental flaw is in that strategy, Captain?" "No, ma'am. It assumes the threat hasn't already spread beyond the containment zone." Parker returned to her command chair with the fluid grace of someone completely comfortable with their position at the top of the food chain. "Blake, show me current positions of all human assets." The main display shifted to show what appeared to be a standard tactical overview of local space. A few dozen human ships were visible, scattered in predictable patterns around Earth and the recent colony worlds. "Now show me the real deployment," Parker ordered quietly. The display changed, and Captain Torres let out a low whistle of amazement. The galaxy was dotted with hundreds of human vessels, from sleek reconnaissance ships to massive capital ships that shouldn't exist according to any Council intelligence reports. They were positioned in a careful web throughout Council space, each one perfectly placed to control critical resources or strategic locations. "How long have we been in position?" Torres asked, still staring at the display in disbelief. 3 months, Blake replied, checking her data. "The first ships moved out 6 weeks before we made official first contact. We've been building this network while the Council thought we were still discovering basic faster-than-light travel." Parker smiled with the satisfaction of a predator whose trap had been perfectly set. "The beauty of persistence hunting is patience. While our prey was focused on our visible presence, we were positioning ourselves for the actual hunt." The bridge's communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. Captain Torres listened to his earpiece, then looked up with surprise. "Admiral, we're receiving a direct transmission from Counselor Threck himself. He's demanding to speak with our military leadership immediately." "Put him through," Parker said, settling back in her chair. The main screen shifted to show the massive, armor-plated form of the Iron Dominion's Supreme Counselor. His voice boomed through the bridge speakers with barely controlled fury. "Human Admiral, I am Counselor Threck of the Iron Dominion. Your species has 36 hours to withdraw all vessels to your home system, or face the combined might of the Galactic Council. This is your only warning. Parker studied Threk's image for a moment, noting the subtle signs of stress in his posture, the way his massive hands clenched and unclenched. Classic intimidation behavior from a species used to dominating through raw power. "Counselor Threk," she replied pleasantly. "Thank you for the call. I have to ask though, are you speaking from your flagship Dominator? The one currently positioned in the Helix Nebula with your third battle fleet?" Threk's expression faltered slightly. "How do you know the position of Council military assets?" "Oh, we know the position of all your military assets," Parker said with casual confidence. "For instance, your first battle fleet is currently holding position near the Veil sector, probably preparing to cut off what you think are our escape routes. Your second fleet is guarding the approaches to your capital system." She stood and walked closer to the screen, her movement somehow predatory despite the peaceful setting of a ship's bridge. "The thing is, Counselor, you're thinking like prey. You're trying to herd us into a confined space where you can use your superior numbers to overwhelm us." Parker's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. "But you're making the same mistake every prey species makes when faced with persistence hunters." "Which is?" Threk demanded, though his voice had lost some of its commanding authority. "You're assuming we want to escape." Parker gestured toward the tactical display, which now showed the true scope of human fleet positions. "Blake, show the Counselor our current strategic situation." The image shifted to display a comprehensive overview of the galaxy's major systems. Red markers indicated Council fleets. Blue markers showed human positions. The pattern was unmistakable and terrifying in its implications. "As you can see," Parker continued conversationally, "while you were repositioning your fleets to contain us, we've actually surrounded you. Every major Council system is now within striking distance of human forces. Your supply lines, your shipyards, your command centers, your population centers." Threk's massive form seemed to shrink slightly as the implications became clear. "Impossible. This would require coordination on a scale that your species couldn't have. Couldn't have planned something this complex. Couldn't have moved this many ships without detection. Couldn't have positioned ourselves this perfectly while making. You think you were in control?" Parker's voice carried a note of genuine amusement. "Counselor, you're still thinking like a traditional predator. You believe in overwhelming force, direct confrontation, making your enemies fear your power." She returned to her command chair, but now her relaxed posture somehow seemed more threatening than any aggressive stance. "Humans are persistence hunters. We don't overwhelm our prey with superior strength. We outthink them. We outmaneuver them. We wait until they're exactly where we want them to be, and then we let them discover that they've been surrounded all along." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of ship systems and the distant sound of Threk's increasingly labored breathing. "The hunt began 3 months ago, Counselor," Parker said quietly. "You're just now realizing you're the prey." She gestured to Captain Torres, who cut the transmission. The main screen returned to the tactical display showing human forces positioned throughout the galaxy like a vast, invisible net. "Admiral," Blake said softly, "what are your orders?" Parker picked up her coffee mug again, taking a thoughtful sip. "Continue standard operations. Monitor Council fleet movements. And Blake?" "Yes, ma'am?" "Make sure our people understand that this is still a hunt, not a battle. The prey is starting to panic, which means they might do something unpredictable." Her smile was calm and confident. "But panicked prey just makes the hunt more interesting." The emergency session of the Galactic Council had never seen such chaos. Representatives from over 400 species filled the Great Chamber, their various forms of panic creating a symphony of distress calls, clicking sounds, and subsonic vibrations that made the very walls tremble. At the center of it all, Ambassador David Kane sat alone at a simple table, calmly reading reports on a data tablet while the galaxy's most powerful civilizations argued around him. Counselor Threk's voice boomed over the noise, his massive form towering above the other representatives. "Order! We must have order!" The chamber gradually fell silent, though the tension remained thick enough to cut. "Ambassador Kane, you will explain the meaning of these fleet movements immediately." David looked up from his tablet with mild interest. "Fleet movements?" I'm sorry, Counselor, could you be more specific? Human vessels move through space quite regularly. It's rather difficult to get anywhere without some form of movement. Counselor Yiska's serpentine form coiled aggressively around her platform. Do not play word games with us, human. Our long-range sensors have detected massive fleet concentrations throughout Council space. Ships that shouldn't exist according to your reported capabilities. Ah, those ships, David said with understanding. Yes, I suppose we should have mentioned them earlier. Although in our defense you never actually asked about our full fleet strength. You only inquired about the vessels in your immediate vicinity. The chamber erupted in angry sounds from dozens of different species. Counselor Breek's bony plates rattled like castanets as he spoke. You deliberately deceived the Council about your military capabilities. David tilted his head thoughtfully. Deceived is such a strong word. We simply answered the questions you asked. When you inquired about our exploration vessels, we told you about our exploration vessels. When you asked about our colony ships, we provided accurate information about our colony ships. His smile was perfectly innocent. You never asked about our military fleet. Before any of the counselors could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The main display activated automatically, showing the external sensor network detecting what appeared to be massive energy signatures approaching the station's location. Counselor Zahn's bioluminescent brain case flickered rapidly as he processed the incoming data. Impossible readings, energy signatures that large would indicate, but the mass calculations don't. His patterns accelerated to a frantic pace. What are we detecting? David glanced at his tablet, then looked up with apparent surprise. Oh, those would be our escort vessels. I should probably mention they're not technically violating neutral space, since they're not actually entering the station's immediate perimeter. The main display updated to show a tactical view that made every representative in the chamber fall silent. Surrounding the diplomatic station in perfect formation were dozens of human vessels unlike anything in Council records. Massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed the largest Council ships, sleek destroyers that moved with predatory grace, and carrier groups that launched wings of fighters in complex defensive patterns. Your intelligence reports, David continued conversationally, indicated that humanity possessed perhaps 24 capital ships and maybe 50 smaller vessels. I can understand how you might have reached that conclusion, given the limited scope of your observations. Counselor Threck found his voice first. How many ships do you actually possess? David consulted his tablet again. Currently in this immediate area? About 300 vessels of various classes. Throughout Council space? He paused, doing mental calculations. Approximately 8,000 ships, though that number changes daily as new vessels come online from our shipyards. The chamber fell so silent that individual breathing patterns became audible through the translation systems. 8,000, Counselor Yiska repeated in a whisper. Give or take a few hundred, David confirmed cheerfully. The exact count depends on how you classify support vessels, reconnaissance platforms, and specialized hunter-killer units. He set down his tablet and stood, somehow commanding the attention of every being in the chamber, despite being the smallest creature present. You see, counselors, you made several critical assumptions about humanity based on your interactions with other species. You assumed we would reveal our full capabilities when making first contact. You assumed our technological development followed predictable patterns. Most importantly, you assumed we thought like the other species you've encountered. David began walking slowly around his table, and somehow the simple movement felt like a predator circling prey. But humans have been preparing for this moment for over 2 centuries, not preparing for first contact, preparing for the hunt that would inevitably follow. His voice carried easily through the vast chamber. Every human colony world has been chosen for its strategic value. Every trade route we've established gives us control over critical resources. Every diplomatic mission has been gathering intelligence on your military capabilities, political structures, and potential weaknesses. The main display updated again, showing the true scope of human presence throughout the galaxy. Not just the ships surrounding the station, but thousands of vessels positioned at every major trade route, resource center, and strategic choke point in Council space. For 6 months, David continued, while you believed you were observing humanity's first tentative steps into galactic civilization, we were actually conducting the largest intelligence operation in galactic history. Every Council species, every government structure, every military installation, every population center has been mapped, analyzed, and targeted. Councillor Breek's massive form trembled with rage. This is an act of war. War? David seemed genuinely puzzled by the concept. Counselor, this isn't war. War implies a conflict between equals who have chosen to fight. He gestured toward the tactical display showing the complete encirclement of Council space by human forces. This is what humans call establishing dominance in a new hunting ground. He stopped walking and faced the assembled representatives directly. You've spent 3,000 years learning how to defeat traditional predators, species that announce their intentions, mass their forces visibly, and fight according to established patterns. But you've never faced persistence hunters operating on a galactic scale. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop as the implications became clear. We've been surrounding you for months, David said with calm satisfaction. Every major Council world is now within range of human strike forces. Your supply lines are under our control. Your communication networks have been compromised. Your fleet movements are being monitored in real time. Councillor Zahn's bioluminescent patterns had slowed to an almost hypnotic pulse. The mathematical precision required for such coordination, the technological sophistication, the strategic patience, is exactly what you'd expect from a species that evolved as persistence hunters, David finished. We don't hunt by overwhelming our prey with superior strength. We hunt by being smarter, more patient, and more coordinated than anything our prey can imagine. He returned to his chair and picked up his tablet again, as if the conversation had been about routine trade negotiations rather than the complete restructuring of galactic power. The beautiful thing about persistence hunting, David said almost casually, is that by the time the prey realizes they're being hunted, they're already surrounded. The hunt is essentially over before they know it began. The chamber remained silent except for the distant hum of human vessels maintaining their perfect formation around the station. Oh, David added as if remembering an afterthought. I should mention that this entire conversation is being broadcast live to every major population center in Council space. We thought it was time for the galaxy to understand exactly what kind of species they're dealing with. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a species that had outmaneuvered them completely, and they were only now beginning to understand that the hunt had been over before it began. 8 months had passed since the revelation in the Council chamber, and Admiral Lisa Parker stood on the observation deck of the human flagship Apex, watching construction drones put the finishing touches on humanity's new galactic headquarters. The massive station orbited above the former Council capital world, its design unmistakably human in its efficient, predatory elegance. Below, the lights of alien cities created patterns that had become as familiar as Earth's own constellations. Admiral, Captain Torres approached with his daily report tablet, the latest submissions from the reformed Galactic Council. 47 different species have requested permission to establish new trade agreements under human oversight. Parker accepted the tablet and scanned through the requests. Each one was written in the carefully respectful tone that had become standard throughout the galaxy. 47 requests in one day, she mused. 6 months ago, they wouldn't have asked our permission to breathe in their own space. Now they request approval for everything from trade routes to scientific expeditions. The psychology shift has been remarkable, Torres agreed. Lieutenant Blake's analysis indicates that most species have not only accepted human authority, but actively seek our protection and guidance. Parker nodded, studying the patrol schedules that showed human fleets maintaining order throughout what had once been Council space. Any resistance movements we need to address? Minor incidents only, Torres reported. A few isolated groups in the Outer Rim territories attempted to form coalition fleets last month, but they disbanded when they realized no major species would join them. Actually, Admiral, Councillor Threck has requested another meeting. Something about formalizing the Iron Dominion's position within the new galactic structure. Parker's expression showed mild amusement. Translation: He wants to make sure his species isn't next on the menu. She turned away from the viewport to face Torres. You know, Captain, this outcome surprised even our strategic planners. We prepared for decades of warfare, expected to fight for every system we wanted to control. How so, Admiral? Parker gestured toward the displays showing current human fleet positions throughout the galaxy. We underestimated how quickly intelligent prey species adapt to a new apex predator in their environment. Look at the efficiency reports from our patrol sectors. Torres followed her gaze to the data streams. Piracy incidents down 94%. Interspecies conflicts down 87%. Trade volume up by over 200% across all major routes. Exactly, Parker said with satisfaction. The galaxy is more stable now than it's been in centuries. Not because we've imposed order through force, but because every species understands their place in the new hierarchy. She began walking toward the command center, Torres falling into step beside her. When you have a true apex predator maintaining territory, the prey species organize themselves more efficiently. As they entered the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Blake looked up from her station. Admiral, we're receiving a priority. Transmission from Earth. High Command wants to know if you're ready to implement Phase 4 of the expansion. Protocol. Parker settled into her command chair and considered this for a moment. Around her, the bridge crew continued their duties with the quiet efficiency that had become humanity's signature throughout the galaxy. Through the main view screen, she could see the running lights of dozens of alien vessels waiting patiently for permission to enter human-controlled space. Tell High Command that Phase 4 is unnecessary, she said finally. We've achieved total strategic dominance without firing a shot in anger. The galaxy has reorganized itself around human authority. She leaned back in her chair, a satisfied predator surveying her hunting grounds. Sometimes the most successful hunt is the one where the prey volunteers to be caught. Captain Torres raised an eyebrow. And if new species emerge from unexplored regions, ones who don't immediately recognize human authority? Parker's smile carried the confidence of someone who had fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Then we'll educate them about the new natural order. The same way we educated the Council. Lieutenant Blake turned from her communications console. Admiral, we're receiving a diplomatic transmission from the Outer Rim Collective. They're requesting formal admission to the Human Protection Zone. They're offering to relocate their entire population to systems under our direct administration. The Outer Rim Collective, Parker mused. They were one of the Council's most independent member species. Now they want to move their entire civilization under our protection. She studied the transmission details on her command display. Approved. Assign them sectors in the Centauri region, but maintain standard monitoring protocols. Yes, ma'am. Admiral, they're also asking about the possibility of their younger generation serving aboard human vessels as part of cultural exchange programs. Parker nodded thoughtfully. The next generation understands even better than their parents. They're growing up in a galaxy where humans are the natural leaders. To them, this hierarchy isn't imposed, it's simply the way things are. The bridge communication system chimed with another incoming message. Torres listened to his earpiece and looked up with interest. Admiral, we're receiving a joint transmission from the Scientific Research Coalition. They're requesting human oversight for a deep space exploration mission into the Andromeda approach vectors. Exploration beyond our galaxy, Parker said, her voice taking on a new edge of interest. They want human guidance for expansion into completely unknown territory. She stood and walked to the main tactical display, which showed the current sphere of human influence extending throughout the local galactic region. Approve the request, but with full human fleet escort and command authority. Ma'am? That would put human forces in charge of the galaxy's first extragalactic expedition. Exactly, Parker replied. The prey species instinctively understand that expansion into unknown territory requires the guidance of apex predators. They're not just accepting human authority, they're actively seeking it out. She turned to address the entire bridge crew. What we've accomplished here goes beyond military conquest or political dominance. We've fundamentally altered the psychology of galactic civilization. Every species now operates under the assumption that humans are the natural leaders, the ones who make the difficult decisions, the ones who determine the direction of galactic development. The main screen updated to show a comprehensive overview of human influence throughout known space. Blue indicators marked human fleet positions. Green showed allied species operating under human protection, and yellow indicated sectors requesting human oversight. The beautiful irony, Parker continued, is that the galaxy is more peaceful and prosperous now than it ever was under Council rule. Not because we've conquered anyone, but because we've established a clear hierarchy that every species can understand and work within. Captain Torres checked his latest reports. Admiral, we're receiving resource allocation requests from 18 different systems, approval requests for 23 new colonial expeditions, and formal applications from 6 species requesting admission to the Human Protection Zone. Parker settled back into her command chair, with the satisfaction of a predator whose hunting grounds had expanded beyond her wildest expectations. Process all requests according to standard protocols. And Torres? Yes, ma'am. Send a message to the reformed Galactic Council. Let them know that humanity is pleased with the progress toward galactic stability and looks forward to continued cooperation in maintaining order. Her smile was warm but somehow still predatory. After all, a successful apex predator takes care of their territory and the species within it. The bridge fell into comfortable routine, the sounds of a smoothly functioning command center managing the affairs of an entire galaxy. Outside the viewport, the lights of 1,000 different civilizations twinkled peacefully under the protection of their new apex predators. The hunt was over. The galaxy had found its place in the new natural order, and humanity had discovered that sometimes the most successful predators were the ones who convinced their prey that being caught was the best thing that could have happened to them.